Well, what a special it is treat for us to have you here tonight. This is Navigate number 8. Thank you very much for joining us, and special kalofale to our advisory board members as well joining us, Emeline and Ali. Thank you very much. Now, as you know, one of the challenges with any BLD is how to actually maintain a focus. Usually with projects, as they come to an end, schools and centres still need to do some work around how to actually sustain that focus. So tonight is about um, some ideas and about how to maintain the focus on Pasifika learners' success. We are definitely not saying that that is not what you're doing, but we are saying tonight that it's critical for all centres and all schools to ensure that there are systems and processes to ensure that there's a very clear focus on gaining better outcomes for our tamariki, our whānau, and our communities. So for tonight's presentation, we will share some ideas with you, and then most of the time will be spent in two groups, the ECE and the schooling group, in which we will work in implementing and around an action plan. And so tonight we will present some ideas, but it is our hope that you will take some of those ideas and contextualize them and adapt, make changes, make sure that they suit your settings. Here are some of the key ideas about how to sustain a tapasa focus. Now, these ideas have come out of our work in the 2 and nearly 3 years of the project. The first thing is ensuring that there is a shared purpose for, in this case, why do we need to focus on Pasifika learners? Now, I know we're speaking, to the converted, but in cases with, for instance, other centres and schools, it is critical that all staff involved talk about why there is an important, why is there a need for tapasa BLD? I think if you do not make some time to fully discuss the rationale, but also surface people's beliefs about the importance or the relevance of the BLD. So we're saying that it's important to make some time for that. The second point is the idea of identifying and empowering leaders and teachers. Now, many centres and schools that we work with, we come in and there's enormous amount of expertise already. And it has been a wonderful experience for us to work and nurture those. We help empower our leaders and teachers to say, look, you're doing these amazing things already. Keep those going. Here are some things that perhaps they're not going as well. How can we actually leverage, how can we utilize what's going well to strengthen some of the things that are not going well? So identify who those leaders and those effective practitioners are already in your centres and schools, and empower them to believe that they've got a critical part to play. Number 3 is around developing an action plan, and it has been a real excitement with us seeing centres and schools, develop an action plan for Pacific learners. Now, for some schools and centres, that's the norm for them, but it has been a new thing for some of the schools. Definitely, I work mainly in the schooling sector, so many centres have tried to actually write a plan that outlines clearly what is it that they're actually planning to do. For number 4 and 5, I'll pass it on to my colleague, Lealofi, to expand on those ideas. Okay?
I've been talking to myself for the past couple of minutes. E tūlou whakawelahi. It's really great to have you all join tonight out of your busy schedule. And I just want to add on, I also want to quickly acknowledge our esteemed leaders once again and our cultural leaders that have been able to join us tonight. Just to add on to identifying and empowering our leaders, I noticed somebody cooking there in the background, which is awesome. But sometimes in early childhood, from an early childhood perspective, the people that are in the hovering around in the background, like our kitchen cooks or, our support workers or, they also bring strengths and are more than capable to contribute to our curriculum program. So, even tapping into our support networks, um, continuing on from where Saliba had left off around creating continuous culturally affirming learning opportunities for growth. I know very well that many of you are already doing some of these very wordy things, and basically it's affirming each other of the knowledge, the strengths, the skills that already exist, that we already have, but sometimes we don't actually realize it ourselves until someone else recognizes it, until someone else says, "Hey, I heard you sing that beautiful song outside. Would you be able to share that for mat time? Or could you teach me it? Or could you, so it's really making note through observations, through taking note, through recognizing the strength, through knowing the people in your learning communities, in your kindergartens, in your aonga mata, and within the families that are part of your services and your schools. And then, looking for opportunities to create resources, looking for opportunities to create support, those leadership, whether that's online, whether having a little digital platform to do that, or whether it's about staying after school. Not that we are suggesting for you to stay any longer than what people are already, but just looking for opportunities to really grow the strengths that everybody brings. In whether it's making ula or making kopai or And number 5, fostering community and family engagement. Fostering community and family engagement, really getting to know your families, really getting to know your communities, knowing that if the theme today is, if the language week is around Niuean language, promoting the Niuean language, culture and identity, then really tapping into not just what is available online or what is available on YouTube, but really getting to know who are the families that currently exist in your schools and your centres. Who are the staff that actually might have connections to the Niuean community.
This slide, in 2019, the Education Hub, you may be familiar with the Education Hub, put out a survey and 178 teachers responded, 80 primary and intermediate and 98 secondary. And the survey was around asking teachers to identify problems of practice or issues or challenges of importance to them. So using a rating from 1, not a priority, to 4, not important. So as you'll see at number 3, so teachers and leaders identified the developing and using culturally sustaining practices as a critical part of their practice. So tapasa sits really well in this space, and so it's good that there's other research outside of the Pacific research that really reinforces the importance of works such as tapasa. some of the examples
Mm.
of sustainable structures that we've seen from the project so far. And many centres and schools have developed the idea of a lead team. Now, a lead team is a group, could be 2, 3, and in some secondary schools, which are bigger, have a team of up to 10 or 12 members of a team who are leading their Pacific or Tapasa focus at school. So having a team has many advantages. One of those is that the expertise and the mahi and the work is spread around different people. Number two, around building tapasa into the curriculum. Now, for many ECEs, that is certainly part and parcels of what you do every day. For us in the schooling sectors, could be implementing a particular unit of work, across the curriculum. For instance, in one of our big intermediate schools in Auckland, there was a unit on the dawn raids that all year 7s and 8 had to do. So that is a good example of how learning from Tapasa can influence curriculum practice and, of course, curriculum pedagogy. And, of course, a third structure, an example that we're actually going to have a look at is through an action plan. Now, an action plan, and we do intend action plan to be a plan full of action, a plan that is live. It shouldn't be something that is designed and then shelved. It should be something, a living document. Now, in the next half an hour, we will split into two groups. I'm pretty sure Alosina has worked out. If you haven't actually stated in the chat your name and which group that you would like to join, please do so now. But the idea in the next half an hour is that we will split and we will work from a template that we have designed. But we'll be very happy to either continue working with you using this template, and on the other hand, if you have a better template, then you can take the learning from here and transfer that into your own template. But that is what we'll be doing now for the next half an hour. We'll be working from this template, and this template, you will see that the idea is identify all the great things, all the things specific that's happening at your kura or your center, and then out of those, you trying to narrow your focus on one thing. I know teachers do lots of things, but we encourage you to focus on one thing and see if you can explain the rationale for why you want to focus on that one thing. And then you will do some thinking around what is the current state, or where are you at in relation to that particular focus? And where do you want to go? And then what are some actions that you can use to bridge that gap? Okay, so that's our task for the next half an hour. So I will wait for Alosina to give us a thumbs up that we are ready. So, and please, you should be seeing a little notice that says, please, Alosina is inviting you to join. Please click on the join, and that will take you into your correct breakout room. So we'll see you pretty soon, and our advisory members can choose which one they wish to join. And maybe Caroline or someone can stay in the main room in case someone has any particular challenges in joining. Otherwise, we'll see you back in a half an hour's time. Kalofalaiatu, malo lava. Right. Great. Hey, we've got a really nice small group. Is it okay if I can ask people just to quickly go around and please just quickly introduce yourself, maybe your name and which kura that you're at? Okay, could I start with you, Emeline, please?
Whakalofalahiatu. My name is Emeline, and I used to work at Mangere Primary School. Malo.
Okay, Michelle?
Kia ora, I'm at Barradine College. I became a teacher. It's my first year, but I did spend 6 months last year at Corfi, which had the bilingual units as well, which was great.
Kia ora. Oh, thank you for joining us. Jackie?
Whakalopalai atu, Jackie Pasi, I'm at Waitakere College. Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. Hi, Emeline.
Right, great. Well, we've got nice small group. Now, Michelle, I don't know, can I just check whether you received, did you receive an email with the action plan attached? Okay, so I'm going to talk through my example, but please, and then I'll give you maybe 1 or 2 minutes just to make some notes about, about your own kura. And so these are some of the things, the data that I'm be showing with you is the data based on the work that we've done and we're doing with one of the schools, but you can make your own notes in relation to the sorts of data that you may want to consider to help you come up with an action plan in line with our template. Okay, so the first thing that we have here is the current state for Pasifika things at our kura. This is our team here of Tapasa. We always start with finding out what is happening for Pacific learners, families, and whānau at every kura that we work with. All the great things, all the way to maybe things that are not great yet, but we always start there. Even things that are going really, really well, we ask teachers and in some cases students to also identify those. So at the moment, so what I have at the moment, I've just cut and pasted some of the information that we've gathered through the school's ERA report. Also some information from student voice. So we've met with a small sample of students in this school, about 19 Pasifika students. And you can see there, I made some notes there about the aspirations. The question was, what are your career aspirations? And the kids gave us some information about their career aspirations. We also collected some information about students' lives outside of schooling in relation to involvement in churches, youth groups, and things like that. And I also gathered some teacher voices. So I've got a whole range of teacher voices I haven't really attached there. And the question I asked the teachers was, what do you want to learn? What do you want to gain out of Tapasa PLD this year? And the teachers gave me a whole list, and I think I've attached the whole list at the end. Let me check if I'm right. Yes. So as you can see there, this is the question I asked teachers. What aspirations you hope to, get from this PLD? So here are some of the things that teachers wanted to get out of this. A lot around building relationships, strategies to help, teach their Pasifika students. Okay, I won't be talking, I'm just gonna, and there's more. So all of these teacher voices. So, and out of all of these voices, we help establish a sense of where things are at. So clearly at this school, there's a lot of things happening already. For instance, Polyfest, a school that regularly takes part in Polyfest. However, out of those, the great things that are happening, the students also highlighted some limitations for the school. For instance, there were no links between, for instance, the students' commitment in Polyfest and their learning. It was totally, okay, there's Polyfest. Now Polyfest is finished. Now let's start learning. That was the feeling I actually got from the teachers, as if Polyfest was a distraction rather than, an opportunity for learning. So all of that data and those information, we help to establish a picture of where that current school is at. I'm going to pause here, giving you some time whether to make some notes, but also maybe some questions as well, if you have any questions. And all we've done is just trying to establish a current state for what specific things are actually happening at that particular kura.
I just put a Google Doc version for people to access in the chat, Saliva. So
Okay.
if you make
Thank
a
you.
copy of that Google Doc, everyone
Mhm.
should be able to access that now.
Yes, so motu foa and waiee, if you can make a copy so you can start then make some notes so you can start moving your plan, start actioning your plan. Don't, rather than wait until after the session so you can maybe make some notes. So we've just worked on the current state, and the current state is simply a term that says, where are things at now for Pacific at my school? Okay, and so whatever information that you have, could be student achievement data, could be student voice, maybe teacher voice, maybe parent voice as well. So all of that data can go in there to help you get a feel for where specific things are at. Please feel free always, whether it's nice group as well, whether you ask the question straight away or there's the chat as well, if you're comfortable doing it that way. Okay, now that is the current state, right? So that's the first part there. One of the best things that you can do is to take all of that information from your current state, and then you and your team, after analyzing all of that data, then you ask some questions. Now, what do we want to focus on? Now, it's likely that that data will tell you to do so many things. And that is the reality for our work as teachers. There are so many things that we think we need to spend time on. But it is also important, especially when you're starting a plan, to narrow that focus down on maybe one thing. If you can focus and identify that one thing to start with, it's very important for you to remember that the challenges that we have in education are interconnected. Achievement links to presence and absence. Achievement has links to teaching and learning. Achievement may have links to factors outside of our control as teachers. Student factors, family factors, teacher factors, schooling factors. That's why it's really important for you to identify something. Now, sometimes something that you think is manageable, can be a very good starting point before you. Sometimes starting with something that's quite big and messy may not inspire you to keep going. Okay, so however you actually do it, the next part of the plan is making sure that you narrow that focus down on something. And the second part is then talking about why is that important. So for instance, if you're saying to me at a secondary school level that parental engagement is important, I'll be asking you some questions. Why? Why do you want to focus on parental engagement? Is that the most important, is that the most important thing that you should be spending time on in the next few months? So as long as your rationale is sound enough for what you've actually decided to do, then that should be, that should be fine. Okay, so that's part 2 of the plan. Part 3 of the plan, this is where you establish a current state for your BLD focus. So for instance, I will use my example here. In my example, this school wanted to understand what the kids think about teaching and learning and what they do as a school. So therefore, finding out how they've gathered student voice before will help me establish that. So in this case, there wasn't any formal gathering of student voices as a, as a big school to help inform teaching and learning, but isolated teachers were doing it. So teachers were doing it because they wanted to improve their own practice, but there wasn't any attempt to really do it at a big scale. So that is the current state, an example of the current state of the BLD focus, is that they wanted to hear the voices of the students, and isolated teachers were doing it, but not necessarily as a school. So once you've wrestled with the idea of where things are at in relation to your focus, so these are some of the things that probably go into more into, as I've said there in the plan. So since the start, these are some of the things that the students have highlighted. So as you can see, there's lots of positive things about the school that the students highlighted. About students thought many opportunities that the schools gives them, sporting, academic, different groups, etc. Lots of teachers. That's really important. That was followed by the word some. So I guess that the word some highlighted that not all teachers. I've also attached there some of the student voices. This was a big thing for those students. In that first comment, you can see that Polyfest was a big thing at the school. But like I said earlier, the kids felt that Polyfest was just an extra thing. It's adding, teachers felt like it was adding a lot of pressure on the kids, and none of that entered the classroom. And the next part of the plan, we call it the desired state. And desired state is just a fancy word for really identifying, where do you need to be? What outcomes do you want to get out of this BLD? And you may remember from some of the teacher voices, I was able to synthesize some of the voices, teacher voices, and identified some of these areas. For instance, like the 4 areas here that we've highlighted. So you can look at your desired state as the goals or outcomes that you want to achieve for your plan, depending on what you want to focus on. It could be, you may want to tie them in relation to teacher, maybe teacher outcomes, student outcomes, parent outcomes, leadership outcomes. It really depends on how you want, the types of outcomes you wanted. So for instance, for us, we're not so sure, although we are beginning now to talk about student achievement, but clearly teachers want to improve their practice. They want to have a better understanding of Pacific learners. They also want to have better school systems to support their Pacific learners. So those are some of the tangible outcomes or desired state that they wanted for their learners. Okay, I'm going to pause here for an opportunity to ask any questions or comments, any feedback, any, or even just general comments or feedback about action plans in your quarter as well. Very happy to hear any comments or questions from the rest of the team. In the bottom part of the plan, we are proposing that you write no more than 3 goals. 3 goals. And we've done one example here. In this case, based on the plan, and we have one goal here around the collection, analysis, and discussion of student voices, which then meant that we had, into the second column around some actions, we targeted a small group of Pasifika students. We decided to target senior students, so it's mainly year 11, 12, and 13. We also talked about how we're going to analyze the data, who is going to analyze the data, all the way to bringing that data back to discuss with the 26 teachers that I'm working with at the school. What measures, third column, what measures do we need to track changes? We talked about, yes, student voice. We want to hear from the students whether the teachers are making any changes. We're now talking about student achievement data, NCA achievement data. We're pulling out the school spreadsheet and finding out where each Pasifika learner is at. So although we're working with these 24 teachers, the school is now looking at the whole picture of Pasifika learners as well. We've discussed the idea of writing a case study for, to capture our journey through Tapasa, and as well as making comparisons between achievement data in the last few years compared to this year. They are also involved in other projects with the university where it targets university entrance, so doing some work around UE. In the fourth column, we have some of the resources that the schools are currently utilizing. For instance, they're involved in Tapasa PLD through us. They're also getting some support through one of our colleagues, Catalina Ma at the University of Auckland. There's support for the lead teachers, as well as trying to develop an action plan with the school. So that is where things are at. As you can see, this is a sort of a plan, and the idea is that we make it a living document, and sorry, the last column is mainly there for teacher leader reflection. So that is one example of a template that you can use for a plan. Our belief is whatever you use, it doesn't matter as long as it's something that works for you, something that you understand, and something that, like I said, that makes sense to you. All right, I'll pause here for any comments or questions, and thank you, Emeline, for your comments. The main our main challenge for us is to ensure that we are deliberately planning for Pasifika success. I think we cannot afford to leave it to chance. We know that every quarter has a strategic plan, but this is the next level up or down, depending on how you use those words. We want Kura to really say, this is our plan for Pacific learners. This is how we're actually going to take them from wherever they're at to these outcomes that are the most desirable. And hopefully you're in a position to say that these are the outcomes that we've co-constructed with our learners, with their families and communities. Now, clearly, there are some outcomes that teachers can maybe decide on in terms of teacher practice, school systems and things like that. But wherever possible, try to include whānau, family voices, student voices as well, to ensure that your plan, has meaning, that your plan has been co-developed and co-designed with our Pacific learners or families and communities. Okay, team, it is 1:45. Any more questions? Did any of that stuff make any sense to you? Okay, thank you very much. I hope that helps. And clearly, Tapasa is a wonderful resource. It is definitely not perfect, but it's a wonderful resource that school leaders and teachers and boards can utilize to strengthen what's, the good things that's going really well, and at the same time looking at what needs to be improved. So we hope that little session was useful? Okay, now we have one main task before we go back. One of us, and we need to feedback, give any comments or feedback, whether it's either whether you view it from your own school, from your own kura, or be anything else that you may have found useful during our session. Is there anybody in particular who would like to speak on behalf of our team?
Thank you, Dr. Saliva. Sorry,
No.
I'm just gonna butt in there. And apologies if you hear any noises. My child is here, but I'm not putting up my hand to volunteer to share. I'm just putting up my hand to say how much I appreciate the work that you're doing from Tapasa. One thing that came to mind when I look at the action plan was not only is it strength-based, but it also make everybody accountable in taking ownership. If ideally, if they all come to the table, school, teachers, students, family, ideally, if they're all there and they come with, so what are the strengths that we all bring? They would immediately figure out where are the gaps and how we can take collective responsibility, ideally, right? So I do appreciate that it's coming from a strength base and it's well structured and allows people to not point fingers, but to say, hey, this is where we are. How are we going to work together to do something for Pasifika? So that's all. Malo.
Malo Taulapa. All right, thank you. I think Michelle put up, thank you very much, Melina, for that. I think Michelle put up her hand.
I did.
Great.
I think what I really liked was the link between the Polyfest. I think that was really really interesting to feel like that there's a lot of cultural things that they do, but it's not linked into the learning and feels like more just another unit to put on or to fit in. So I think that's actually really important that we're recognizing, and it's every year, so there shouldn't be any reason why that you can build on top of it. So I thought that was a really good point. And obviously it then brings in the school, the kura, the community, the whānau, because they're normally really involved in that sort of stuff. So it'd be lovely to take that into the core learning in the classroom.
Great. Thank you for that. Would you mind just maybe sharing that with the big group, Michelle, when we get back? Yeah.
Okay.
Can be that. Great. Thank you very much. All right. Well, motivawa and Baye. All right. So I think the time is almost nearly up for us to go back into the main room.
Sure, I'll do that now.
Yeah. So any comments or questions? So we'll, after sharing, then we'll have another chance to get back to have your questions. All right. See you back in the main room.
Am I in the right place?
Yeah.
Right.
ECE will they'll take up
ECE
their
is still
whole 1
going.
minute to
Oh,
keep
okay.
talking.
Keep going harder.
They won't return to the main room like we did quickly.
Yeah.
They'll still be talking, making every single second count.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, it's been for me, as I'm secondary trained, but I've also, through Tapasa, I've had the opportunity to work with ECE teachers. I tell you, these teachers work all the way through to 6 o'clock, and then we run their PDs after that. So, man, amazing. They're amazing, amazing people. Right. Welcome back. Lofi, can I just check if you had one person to share? Identify one person to share back something? Or if not, you guys can.
Yes, Inano would like to share.
Thanks, Lofi.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for our ECU teams that came over to our breakout room. It was a really good discussion. Good to see and hear a lot of experiences that our ECEs and kindergartens and language nests have been thinking a lot more about and being a lot more aware of the cultural responsiveness within their practice. Some of the things, the exciting things that that was shared was through the professional growth cycle, weaving in tapasa within their program planning. Of course, engaging with our Tuituia team, Pacific-led team, and coming to present tapasa. Lots of exciting new learning within the celebrating the language weeks for the first time, acknowledging activities
that are relevant to the culture. What,
sorry.
you know, so for example, if it's Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, or if it's the Fijian Language Week, they've been able to be purposeful in how they celebrate the week.
Yeah.
Done, Inano.
And within the preparation of planning for the language weeks, you know, the going into depth and acknowledging that it's not a tapa, it's the Fijians, they call it masi, and the patterns. So just going a little bit deeper into their finding and acknowledging ethnic specific identity within the cultures, different cultures. Lots of talk around documentation and how important it was for the teams to be able to document each of the different events and within their planning, but also to follow through with the what next, what are we going to do next, that they're going to keep going. It's not just celebrated within the language week, but continues. There's one of our hangamatas having a graduation this weekend, and they're celebrating their 5-year-olds that have been attending with all their families coming to celebrate. And it was an initiative from the families that they wanted to have a look at this practice and to celebrate the work that the children have been doing within their service. So it's really exciting to hear that it's continuing, not just within the language weeks, but outside, and that's how it should be. And adding on to our kite of knowledge. Also allowing teachers to think outside of the box, being more creative, researching and looking at ways that they can extend their learning when doing something new. I think that was an exciting thing for teachers to acknowledge that this is new for me, not just the tapasa journey, but having a look at language weeks and what that looks like for us. We just started with the desired state and what that looked like with our PRD focus. And we had a look at sustaining the practice and continuing it and having authentic engagement with our communities and what that looks like, reaching out for support within their communities, but also with the PRD facilitators as well.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So Michelle will feedback back something from our group. Thank you.
I feel like I need to say a little bit more now. That was so good. So I think that what I really enjoyed about it was we were basically looking at a step-by-step guide to establish where we actually currently were. That was the sort of action plan. And that was really through collating data from different sort of variety of information. So we had the student voices, what their aspirations were. We also talked about what their involvement was at Kuru, outside of the Kuru. So I think that really gives a really good view of often that life we don't see, particularly as teachers when we sort of in a group with other people. And collation of teacher voices as well, what they were looking for, what they felt the gaps were, what they needed. And then linking the learning communities within to the classroom and also the whānau voices. So from there, then we were sort of looking at where do we need to be and what do we want to get out? And I really like the idea of having just establishing 3 goals to keep you really focused, to enable you then to put some targets and to be able to track changes around it, which then enables you to see how successful you are within the Kura. And then I really like the idea, because you've gained that information from a variety of sources, involved everyone, that enabled you to show that your outcomes have been co-created, which then gives other people really, I guess, commitment and feel like they're also involved in the decisions of the school and their learners, because that's really the Okonga is what it is about. One of the things I particularly myself identified that I learned was around about ideas that they have these learnings outside that they're specifically involved with, which may be events. And it was to do with the one that was brought up was the Polyfest. And so what they sort of felt like as teachers was that it was an event that they went to, it was organised, but then that information and that learning wasn't brought into or incorporated into their just general classroom teaching and the curriculum that it was getting involved. So it felt more like an add-on rather than actually using everything to be able to learn, I think, from every aspect. And that really then links back to the involvement of the student voices of the teachers and the community as a whole. So yeah, I feel very grateful to have been part or listened to the discussion about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for your feedback. Right, we've got some time for any questions, please, whether you can ask them live now or in the chat. And at the same time, Alosina has put a evaluation form as well, so please make sure give us some we feed off good feedback and feed forward from people. That's how we grow as well as facilitators. So, but we've got a couple of minutes for any questions or comments that people have around action plans, or maybe sustaining anything around sustaining the focus. Because it's always easy to start, to go on, start a project. Sustaining it is much harder. It's much harder to do. So we've got some of our academics and some of our advisors, and also, enormous expertise, within the team on our webinar. So
Just sorry, Tulo, just a comment. I also welcome people to jot down your comments in your specific languages, in your respective languages, and we will try our best to address your comments. Malo.
Right. All right. So, team, we pride ourselves as starting on time and finishing on time as well. We've got 2 minutes before. Okay. So let me wrap this up. Okay. The focus for tonight is on sustaining focus on Pacific success. As I said earlier, it's easy to start a project. It's much, much harder to sustain that focus. An action plan is one of the tools that can help you maintain that focus on Pacific success. For some of our centers in Kura here, that is the norm for you because of your context. So therefore, you what you may need to consider is how you strategically plan to sustain that focus. Because as the Tapasa projects comes to an end, you don't want your teachers to start talking about Tapasa. You want them to keep thinking, okay, how does this align with Tapasa? How does this align with certain indicators of Tapasa? How do I know that what we're doing is impacting positively on our Pasifika learners, on our families and whānau? How do we know? So without a plan, it can be very challenging for us to actually find out. Okay, so whānau, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We have been very honored to have you tonight, and we look forward to Navigate 9. Now, Navigate 9 coming up next month is all about sharing the mahi. We've invited some of our centres and schools to share 1 or 2 things about their journey. So please look forward to that. We will let you know when the next Navigators will start promoting that, but that is what Navigate 9 will focus on. So to wrap things up, if I could invite Famulmole, Faltua, Penina, if I could ask you, Famulmole, if you could just close us, Whakarakia, e Patatalo, Famulmole, for tonight. If you could just unmute your mic, Famulmole.
Thank you, everybody, for tonight. Thank you, Siliva and Lofi, for leading us tonight. Tato wifo matalo le tua. Mato whaftai le tua nei a whiawhilo lo whamlo wanga le lei. Mato whaalongo fo I malmanino mal tutoa. Wa awa uina fo I o mato mawhau I nisi o vae ngai au na mato whatau nuina. Whaftai mo Siliva Malofi. Ona o le whaapanoina o la taimia o awai mātou whaftai le atua I lo whamloanga le lei, whaatale nina I mātou, e ui na mātou vai ma le atoa, ai te fisosoani mai pēr, mātou whaato ese I lau o fio pe a whai o le atoa la mātou whaalongo, ia ma le atoa mea mātou te whaatino I nai, le whaafai le leino o whanau, tau si mai mātou, wha manuia mai ai mātou umalama, lo whea ngai maua onga, ma le whaafai le leina o whanau, ono lo swafa Yesu. Amen.
Amine. Whaafatai, Whionga
Amen.
Faltua. Okay. Pō Marie, Manuia le Whiawhi. Good evening.
Tai lava.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very
Good
much.
night.